I'm going to talk through this 4-panel review sheet that you're given for the midterm review. So this is so you can conceptualize some of the layout choices that we've been making in CSS and imagine what you would have to do in the CSS to make them happen. And so I'm going to go talk through these one at a time. So for this one at the top left, you have one H1 followed by two Ps. And what you want to do is to squeeze down both of those P's and put a large gap in between them. So what you would need here is you don't really need to do anything to the H1. It looks same in before and after. It looks like you will probably affect the width of the P's. So I would need a rule with the selector of P to do them both at once. I could also wrap both of these P's in a div and then make a rule that styles that div and put the width on the large container div. Either one of those options would be fine. Now to get the space between them, it could be margin, could be padding, it's some kind of spacing, and it could be at the bottom of the first one or at the top of the second one. Either way, there's no way that you can put this in the generic P rule. You would have to put an ID either on this one and add a whole bunch of margin to the bottom, say, or you would have to put an ID on this paragraph and put a whole bunch of margin or padding at the top. So those are some of the concepts that this panel is showing you. Moving on to this, the bottom left panel. So this is 3 paragraphs, and we want them to be squeezed down. Okay, so this is actually simpler than the above one. This one I would either, I would either have a rule that was just P for the selector to get all those 3 P's at the same time, and to put a width on them. Or to put a container around all 3 and to write a rule for that container and put a width on that. You could, it doesn't really specify, it doesn't have to be width. This could also be a large right margin. So this is not telling us what happens when the browser page resizes. So it's possible that if you pulled this browser to the side, then these would get a slightly bigger. So you could have a percentage width on here, you could have a percentage margin on the right, but somehow you're going to have to either have more margin open up on the right, or you're going to have to squeeze down the actual width of the elements using the width property. There's not one right answer here because we're not given enough information like what happens when the browser resizes, for example. Okay, let's move to this one up here. So we have the same H1 and P that we see to the left, but this time we're going to have a background image that goes all the way down the body. So that is bg.gif repeating in the Y direction. And we're also going to layer on a smile.gif. It's not, well, I would say, so it's not really, there's not one right answer for how the smile.gif is placed, but you could put it on the body with the bg.gif. It looks like it has enough space built into it to end up in the right spot, and you just have to position it down a little bit with the background image or background position. So background position is not going to be left top because it's not at the top. It would have to be the word left followed by some kind of number that would move it down that much-ish. You could also, if this heading and this paragraph or this whole, all the content of the page were wrapped in a div, you could put the smile.gif background on that interior div rather than on the body. So that's another choice that you have. And in that case, you could modify the position of the div with margin or padding, and then you could also pad over this div to go past the background image. That's if the smiley face is on the same div as all of this content. If the smiley face is on the body, well, you're still going to have to squeeze the content over to the right-hand side, but in that case, whether you do it with margin over here or padding over here, it doesn't matter, one or the other. It doesn't look like the right-hand side space changed at all, so it's just the left-hand side margin or padding of this area. I suggest mocking this up in an actual HTML and CSS file so you can get a sense of how you can move these blocks around. Let's take a look at this one on the bottom. Same again, H1 followed by 2 Ps. This time we're not doing anything to the side margins of these. They're going as is down into the document, but we are going to have to increase either the top margin or the top padding. So margin dash top or padding dash top above this area. You could do that to the H1 only. That would move all the content down, but it's probably a better idea to wrap all of this stuff into a div and then to move the whole thing down as a unit. Here's the same background or a similar background bg.gif, which is repeating downward, so repeat -y. And then laid on top of it is lala.gif, which is going to be anchored at the left top, and will you just have to make sure that it goes in front in the layering order. Again, mock this up in the HTML with images of your choice, just so you can do some more playing. Do those, do the fish and the T exercise again. Do some of the review exercises from previous weeks, just to make sure that you understand what's going on, and then also, you know, review links between files and some of the other things that we weren't covering in the past couple weeks.